Welcome everyone, I'm BraveX Hero, and today we're putting the finishing touches on our character subclass video series. With Warlocks and Titans already getting their time to shine in the spotlight, today we're focusing on, yes you guessed it, the Hunter subclass. And yes, I called up 2 more Destiny 2 YouTubers to help me with today's video. So if you enjoyed today's video, do me a favor and subscribe to not only this channel, but also the channels of our featured creators. You can find them down below in the description and in the pinned comment. Links to all dim builds will be down below in the description. But with that, what do you got for us, Gmeiners?
Brave, you couldn't have picked a better time to show off everything Hunters are capable of, because we have Grandmaster Nightfalls right around the corner. And I gotta be honest, not many builds beat out the Void Hunter here. The build I have today has so many different ways to play, like generating ammo for your team, taking out champions, getting off tons of revives, and even completing entire objectives while staying invisible. Taking a look at our Void 3.0 subclass, as far as super goes, I like to run Deadfall, but Quiver is a nice alternative depending on the situation, like if you need some more damage. Gambler's Dodge is going to allow us to get our melee back when dodging near an enemy, and then for our melee, we're going to be rocking Smoke Bomb because that's your only option. Smoke bombs are a great way to utilize invis, but it also seconds as a method for weakening enemies. And then lastly, the grenade you run is going to be up to you, but Vortex tends to be the best for the build. This is mainly going to be used to weaken enemies, so having a longer, lingering grenade means we get this debuff to last slightly longer. For our aspects, we are purely focusing on invis for ourselves and for our teammates. So first up, we are going to be running Trapper's Ambush. This is especially strong because it allows us to make teammates invisible just with our regular smoke bomb throws, and we also gain the ability to use Quickfall. This lets us dodge downwards out of the air, going invis when landing, and then we also are going to make a smoke cloud that weakens nearby enemies. This is going to get you and your teammates out of a bunch of sketchy situations and is perfect for getting revives because you can instantly make others invis as soon as they spawn. Second to this, we are also using Vanishing Step so that we can go invisible after dodging. Now that we can vanish with our dodge and our smoke bomb, we're easily going to be able to smoke bomb, dodge, and then smoke bomb again, which means we can invis chain to make this last super long, and with high mobility, the uptime is even better. We're only going to be getting 3 fragments with this setup, but we are going to be putting these to work. First up is going to be Echo of Obscurity. Now, whenever we get a finisher off on an enemy, we're going to gain invisibility. This is going to be perfect and pair with our exotic in the build to help us take down champions safely and keep our ammo economy high for our team. Echo of Undermining is a Void 3.0 classic. This is what gives our grenades weakening effects. So anytime we throw it at an enemy, they're going to be taking 15% more damage from all sources. So this is going to be clutch for champion kills because we can now use a grenade, tether, or smoke bombs as a debuff. And then finally, we have Echo of Persistence. This makes void buffs applied to us last longer, so we're going to get the few extra seconds on invis every time we get this to proc. It might not sound like a major increase, but it definitely adds up over time, especially when we're chaining invis back to back to back. The exotic we are using for this build is going to be the Aeon Swifts. For years, these went heavily underused, but with the Sect of Insight mod on, anytime that we use a finisher on an elite, we generate special ammo for our team, and then more importantly, on bosses or mini bosses, we're generating heavy ammo. This is especially strong in GMs because every champion counts as a mini boss, so very quickly you can max out your heavy ammo reserves, which is going to allow you to use heavy ammo much more aggressively, making the Nightfalls easier and speeding up your clear times. I tend not to recommend too many combat style mods for GMs because I don't think they always help, but here are 3 that I highly recommend for this build. First up is Powerful Friends. This is going to give plus 20 mobility as long as you have 1 arc mod on any piece of armor. Ever since the resilience changes, tier 10 is meta, which means high mobility and high recovery is extremely hard to achieve on hunters, so plus 20 mobility helps a ton with this. Because this build does revolve around using your smoke bomb, Radiant Light, which gives plus 20 strength, also helps a bunch. And then most importantly, the mod Reactive Pulse is going to give us an overshield when doing a finisher. This is also from the secondary perk of the mod, since one of our fragments are exotic and the general style of the build revolves around finishers, gaining an overshield while in the finisher animation helps us stay alive. This is hands down my favorite GM build. It's one of the main reasons I look forward to playing Void Hunter later in the season, and if your team doesn't need ammo, you can easily switch to another exotic like Omnioculus or Orpheus Rigs. So this build is definitely versatile for whatever your team may need.
Wow, what a great segment. If you plan on going into Grandmasters, I hope you took notes. Now, let's see who's next. Truds, you're up.
It's thanks to awesome Void builds from Gmeiners why Revenant Hunters have taken a backseat in recent times, as the light subclass reworks are all the rage. But let's dive back into the darkness, freezing your heart and your enemies with my favourite Stasis Firefly build in 3 minutes or less. If you like infinite grenades, huge stasis explosions, abilities on tap, and an overcharge slept on super perfect for huge DPS, then this is for you. It's all set up around shattering any and every stasis crystal, as these create immense explosions in a large area, harking back to the days of the pre-nerf Warmind cells. These last got a substantial damage buff in the 30th anniversary update prior to the Witch Queen, now making them deal huge chunks of damage and delete waves of adds. The Glacier Grenade is clearly the main choice for this, but you'll absolutely want to pair it with the Touch of Winter aspect, as it'll add an extra stasis crystal whilst changing its formation too, making it even more potent. Just this alone will do the business, but to really shatter your enemies' hopes and dreams in an icy mess, you'll want to chuck your favourite headstone weapon into the mix. Aya's Luna is great for popping heads, but there's plenty of other choices right now, and you'll want this because Headstone actually has some awesome synergy with all of the stasis aspects and fragments. By simply chucking on the Whisper of Rending, you'll be able to one-tap any stasis crystal you create with your favourite kinetic or stasis weapon. Then if you want to maximise the shatter damage caused by both your Headstone and Glacier Grenade crystals, add in the Whisper of Fissures to really get that Stasis Firefly effect rolling. Now you can actually increase the damage of your Headstone crystals using this little known trick by a further 25%, and to do this you'll need to add in the Font of Might. Shattering a Stasis Headstone crystal with your stasis weapon will buff its explosive damage with this unique stasis synergy. You'll need to create and collect stasis elemental wells to do this though, with elemental armaments and ordnance being ideal picks. Stasis wells will also grant you ability energy too, and you can maximise the effect of this from the Well of Restoration. As you've got Grim Harvest creating stasis shards to grant melee energy when collected, generally your grenade will be your lowest charged ability, but thanks to the Whisper of Shards and also the Whisper of Torment, you'll be able to rapidly recharge your grenades back to back. Shattering either your Glacier Grenades or Headstone Crystals will trigger the shards regen boost, and this can be topped up near on indefinitely. Finally, for the best part, and we're going to maximise your DPS, putting you at the top of the chart. Harmonic Siphon will create orbs of power, and multi-kills with the Headstone explosions will count. Now if you put on the Scaly Fish boots, you can rapidly recharge your Silence and Squall super on collecting orbs of power. It's recently been brought back in line to only require 4 Feast of Light stacks to overcharge your super and boost its damage by 70%. This makes it perfect for high burst damage with its one and done nature, but where it really shines is that you can pair it with the Supreme Wellmaker. This will create stasis wells on popping your super, which will instantly trigger the Font of Might, buffing your favourite stasis heavy weapons such as the Reed's Regret. Then with the Whisper of Impetus, you can chuck your Withering Blade melee to instantly reload your heavy weapon and maximise your damage output. But the real beauty of this though is that it's super easy to use, easy to set up, and will stack with buffs from the Well of Radiance and Divinity, easily making you the envy of any good fire team and some bad ones too.
Okay, I like those builds, but I guess it's time for me to sharpen my throwing knife, so I can slice through this next build like a hot knife through butter. Okay, moving on. Our next build not only takes the power of the Hunter throwing knife, but we add a mix of maximum damage potential and orb creation. To cover the basics quickly, you want to use Gambler's Dodge. When you dodge near an enemy, you'll get a full melee charge. Next up, we're selecting Weighted Knives. Every time you get a precision melee kill, our knife will fully charge. As for grenade, you can go with anything that your heart desires, but I prefer Trip Mine. But in higher endgame content, you might decide to go with a healing grenade. As for aspects, On Your Mark and Knock 'em Down are the ones you want to go with. And to cover the fragments quickly, Ember of Char, Ember of Singing, Ember of Benevolence, Ember of Solace, and Ember of Torches, all of which only make this build even better in PvE. Now that we have the basics out of the way, let's get into our exotics of choice. We have the Athery's Embrace. This comes with the exotic perk Skittering Stinger, in which your weighted knife gains a second bounce, but rapid precision hits with your weapons grant weighted knife a significant damage bonus and the ability to stun enemies. Yes guys, this exotic has a built-in unstoppable mod, which can come in handy in any endgame activity. Now, to put a cherry on top for this segment, you want to use any shotgun with the perk 1-2 punch. Now Athery's Embrace and the 1-2 punch shotgun have a very simple gameplay loop. When you fire your shotgun at an enemy and you land every pellet, this activates 1-2 punch. At this time, when you throw your weighted knife at the enemy, this will deal bonus damage. Keep in mind that if you land precision shots beforehand, your weighted knife gains bonus damage, thus dealing even more damage. In a side-by-side comparison in a lost sector against one of the champions, without Athery's Embrace, we deal 81,512 damage. But when the perk is active, you deal so much damage. We crossed over 241,000 damage just on this champion alone. Shoot, if you plan on going into the master difficulty, don't worry, you can still take down the champion easily. Now let's turn our hunter into an orb machine. For mods, you want to run 2 harmonic siphon mods, 1 elemental charge mod, 1 melee wellmaker, 1 elemental time dilation, 1 well of life mod, and lastly, 1 striking light mod. When you get weapon kills that match your subclass, you drop an orb of power. Now, when you secure a throwing knife kill, this will drop a solar elemental well, and picking that well up will make you charge with light and activate well of life, and that's going to give you a healing bonus. And since we're using elemental time dilation, our well of life is now extended 3 seconds, from 10 to 13 seconds. Lastly, when we're charged with light, each enemy we kill with a melee will drop an orb of power for our teammates. And as you can see from the footage in the background, you can drop a ton of orbs. And yes, you've guessed it guys, this build is great for weak enemies and even those tanky bosses and champions. Now hunters are typically known for jumping around, but our next build is going to make you feel like a titan. Our build revolves around the Liar's Handshake exotic gauntlets and the melee ability. The reason we want Liar's Handshake is due to the exotic perk Cross Counter. Using your arc melee ability or being hit by a melee attack will allow you to follow up with an extremely powerful melee counterpunch that'll heal you. Now to cover the basics quickly, you want to use Gambler's Dodge for that melee recharge. Next, you want Combination Blow, since this is the bread and butter of this build. As for aspects, you want to use Flow State and Lethal Current. Both will synergize extremely well with this build. With Flow State, when you're amplified, your dodge recharges faster. And when you dodge near an enemy, this activates Lethal Current. Your melee has increased lunge range and jolts the target. For fragments, you want to use Spark of Focus, Spark of Recharge, Spark of Frequency, and if you plan on jumping into endgame content, Spark of Resistance. Now to quickly cover the mods, you want 1 melee wellmaker, 1 striking light mod, 1 well of striking mod, 1 heavy-handed mod, and 1 elemental charge mod. With heavy-handed, when you're charged with light, you regain half your melee energy when you use a charged melee ability, which for this build, we use it all the time. Next, a familiar one for everybody, the mod Striking Light. When you're charged with light, defeating enemies with a melee ability will spawn 1 orb of power, again becoming an orb generating machine. And the gameplay loop is simple. You get a melee kill, you're gonna drop an arc elemental well. Picking that up is gonna make you charged with light, thus allowing us to use Striking Light and heavy-handed. And as you can tell, I keep getting my life back. That's because of Liar's Handshake and the Hunter's Combination Blow, both of which will heal you when you get that melee kill. And there you have it, a build for each Hunter subclass. For those looking for builds that can carry you in any PVE activity, I hope you found this guide useful. And a massive shout out to Gmeiners and Truds. If you haven't stopped by their channels, I highly recommend you do so. They're great Destiny 2 YouTubers who produce a lot of great content for Destiny 2. Now go out there and try some of these builds. Thank you so much for stopping by. You have a good one, and I will see you in the next video.